dressed to impress, in fully tailored black slacks, long-sleeved, button-up shirt, red and gold striped necktie, and black sports shoes. I drove my all-black, middle-class city car deftly through traffic on my usual route to school. After all, angels, demons, or avoid spawn be damned, it was 20 minutes until I had to be in class, teaching an English lesson. This update should be anything but boring, and if you're not surprised, concerned, intrigued, or creeped out a bit, maybe you might be interested in swapping places with me. See if that changes your mind. Yes, I've heard what some of you would do in my shoes. I can't blame you. Honestly, I'm human too, 99.00% at least, and the thoughts you've expressed have crossed my mind as well. Some of you would take what I've learned, cut your losses and leave Sandy. Others would dump Sandy and specifically try to get with Colcifer. Well, you're not me, are you? And for that, try and consider yourself lucky. To my relief, traffic was surprisingly light for that day of the week, so I decided to take a risk and stop at my favorite coffee shop. It's nearby, never too busy around this time, and the baristas here know how to make a good cup of joe. Kind of a strange thing to call coffee. I suppose cup of John sounds pretty awkward. And cup of Joseph? How about cup of Daniel? Nope. Cup of Joe it shall remain. In the middle of the road out in front of the coffee shop, I noticed that the skid marks were still there from when Colcifer saved me from getting killed by a speeding car. That was the very first day she had ever materialized to me in her mostly human form. Years ago, she first appeared to me in the form of a grotesque red demon. That was back when I thought she actually was a demon. She always did like to change forms, though I suppose I would too if I were some kind of celestial fugitive. I pulled into the parking lot and couldn't help but wonder where Colcifer had gone off to. It wasn't as if she stayed cramped inside her pocket dimension all day. Nothing but musty old books lining her wall-to-wall shelves. Surely she would tire of the prying eyes of the damned which congregate in the lazily swirling shadows around her. Those agonized faces only seem to draw close to her when she uses arcane powers unrelated to her angelic nature. Likewise, when she draws upon her divine power, those same shadows recoil. I'll have a cappuccino with a shot of espresso, and one of those bacon and egg croissants. Thanks, and sorry, I don't have time to talk today. Taking a risk just stopping by, haha, but your coffee is worth it. The barista smiled and replied, no worries, teacher. I gave a smile and a nod as I took a seat, making sure to keep a watchful eye on the clock. Seconds ticked away, one after the other. Well, not exactly ticking, as some people find the tick-tock of old clocks to be annoying or disturbing. No, the clock on the wall was one of those unnerving analog ones, you know, where instead of actually ticking, the second hand just flows fluidly, never really stopping. It caused my anxiety to settle between my shoulders. Its truthful nature showed what everyone knows, but tries to forget by carefully managing their schedule. Time flies, never slowing, never stopping. I need to get a grip. I looked away thinking about the dream I had last night. I wondered if I should bring it up to Colcifer. She may try and deflect my questions, but I know in my bones that what I witnessed in my sleep last night couldn't have just been a dream. It feels so much more like a memory once forgotten, and only just re-remembered. I must have gotten lost in thought, but the sound of my phone alarm snapped me out of it. I took the liberty of putting your items all in takeaway containers. I know you're in a hurry. I thanked the barista, swiped my card and punched in my PIN number, snatching my stuff and heading out the door. I got in my car and headed towards my school. I was confused about the lack of cars on the road as I drove, so I switched on the radio to see if there were any traffic updates. The news anchor was in the middle of this exact topic. No casualties, no injuries reported, but 3 18-wheelers, one carrying a shipment of coffee beans, one carrying unprocessed coal and another carrying liquid nitrogen, all experienced engine trouble several minutes ago. Reports claim that this incident happened at 3 major intersections, causing traffic to slow to a crawl as cars slowly make their way around the 3 large, immobilized trucks. Those intersections where I switched off the radio and cracked a smile. The coal truck obviously stands for Coal-Cipher. The coffee bean truck was a nod to my stop at the coffee shop. And the truck hauling liquid nitrogen? Ha. I get it, Coal-Cipher is saying she's so freaking cool. What a show off. Well, at least with her help, the day seemed to be off to a good start. Looming threat of cosmic void spawn aside, I arrived at school with almost 2 minutes to climb 4 flights of stairs, then start teaching class, but with such a valid excuse for my lateness. You can bet your sweet roll that I'm taking my time and finishing my coffee first. Though today is a light day, I usually skip lunch and order delivery around 3 p.m. And today I was in the mood for pizza, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The director of the school eventually caught up with me shortly after my final class of the day. "Oh, John, what sort of half-baked excuse could you possibly have for being so very late?" the graying director asked, his tweed suit 2 sizes too big. "Oh, good morning, Mr. Director. You wouldn't believe the traffic accident that happened nearly an hour ago now." The director cut me off. "Don't bother, as I don't want to hear it. It's always excuses with you, John." I paused, unsure of how to react to his statement. I opened my mouth to give an apology, but he slapped one of his time-weathered hands on my shoulder. You should see the look on your face. Anyway, I happened to be watching the news this morning, so you've no need to bother embellishing the events to me. You're off the hook this time, fair and square. See you bright and early tomorrow. That is, if I don't see you again by 4 p.m. I nodded and told the playful old geezer, "Yes, sir, Mr. H." Horatio was his surname, and he'd been the director of this school longer than I've been alive. He may mean well by his kidding around, but it's also only natural for employees to feel uncomfortable around employers when they like to joke about firing you. This was mild compared to some jokes he's made in the past. After he was out of sight, I wasted no time in heading to the break room, where I plugged in my phone, cracked open a bottle of water I'd grabbed from the fridge, and sat down in an oversized comfy chair. The break room was usually empty around this time, as most teachers take this time to nap at their desks or teach an intensive class for extra cash. I took a moment to be alone with my thoughts, just to breathe and ready myself for my after-school meeting with Coal-Cipher. Thoughts of my vision from the night before, thoughts of my secret trip to the Nexus without her, and thoughts of how my heart stopped momentarily before that energy within me restarted it. Was this fallen angel trying to kill me? I need to get a grip, I chided myself. Though fear wasn't an emotion I could currently experience, I could still recall the sensation of being in danger, which I felt whenever I think back to that moment in the Nexus, when I listened to the sounds coming from the void. I decided that I'd been sitting in contemplation long enough after that last thought, so I started looking for the number to that pizza shop. It sure sounded like a better use of my time. I'd saved it in my contacts under the initials MP. So I quickly found the number to my favorite pizza shop, Maurizio's Pizzio, home of some of the most sinfully delicious pizza pies in Asia, though he's not publicly listed. And yet, I've checked with the owner in the past, and it was indeed named by a 9-year-old. I giggle when I read it sometimes. Sure, it's a funny name, but it's some seriously tasty pizza. I called the shop and ordered my favorite pie, double layer, stuffed crust, 4 kinds of cheese topping, salami and black olives. They told me it was a 20-30-minute wait and asked where I wanted it delivered. So I told them to drop it off at the school, as per the usual. I hung up and put my phone on the charger. But something didn't feel quite right. Something seemed, well, a bit off. And then I had a thought. Here I am, about to indulge in a pizza like nothing's wrong with my life. Like everything's fine. Like there are none noble horrors lurking around. skulking in the realm between ours and theirs. I sat a moment longer in silence, just staring at the phone, then picked it up and started dialing a number. Yeah, it's me, John. No, I still want it, but like some kind of psychopath, I completely forgot to order some cola. No, not the diet crud. Thanks. As I hung up the phone, it glitched. It wouldn't end the call, not even registering my finger taps on the red end call button. I guess I'll just turn off the phone, which was the most reasonable thing to do. I held down the power button for a moment, but the phone gave me a powerful little shock. What the hell? Dropping it immediately, the phone fell right onto my foot as I tried to soften its landing, and it ended up screen side up. Well, at least I quit. The speakerphone switched on from the phone in a demonic voice. We have her where we want her, John. We shall not allow you to struggle further, fruitless as IT would have been. Heck, why? Your mongrel soul isn't even worthy to be eaten by our lowest. I kicked my phone up to my hand and poured a measure of the little mystical energy I could muster into my voice, cutting the void spawn off mid-sentence. You sound like you're in a hurry to take care of me, and that tells me one thing. Really? What do you imagine IT tells you, mongrel? Ha! It tells me that you're pissing yourself to get rid of me before I become strong enough to spell your doom. Fine. When you least expect IT, one soldier is all I shall send to end you. A soldier of the lowest order will be more than sufficient. I hung up the phone using a jolt of arcane energy behind my button press. About 15 minutes later, I tried to mentally contact Holsifer to give her a heads up about the threat made by one of the void spawn, but I received no reply. I know that she must have gotten my message, but it seemed that maybe she was busy. Whatever, I'd see her later tonight anyway. Star knock knock star. I heard a knock from outside the break room door. Who is it? Pizza delivery for John. Finally, my pizza had arrived. One moment, let me get my wallet. I walked over to the door, the smell of those 4 cheeses and decadent sauce already wafting through the cracks around the door. I could hardly wait to sink my teeth into that crispy, golden, cheese-stuffed crust. Money in hand, I grabbed the doorknob. You know when that spider superhero sense starts tingling, then he jumps out of the way safely? I felt a sense of danger like a chime inside my head, spiking toward the direction of the door the moment I touched the handle. This prompted me to press in the little knob lock. As the lock clicked, not a second passed before the door burst off of its hinges, smacking into me and knocking me down. The weight of a full-grown man was soon added to the door on top of me. In a slightly distorted human voice, my attacker spoke when you least expected it. I was deployed to snuff out your life. Your death will bring me great rewards from my superiors. Immediately, the creature tried to remove the door to get to me, but I held onto the knob with all my might. Arg! It growled in annoyance and began ripping at the door, strike after strike. You piece of... Look! Any damn chance we could work out a deal? Splinters were flying this way and that as the creature hissed no deal. Slow death only. I grabbed a sharpened pencil from my pocket and readied myself to stab this sorry bastard in the face. It was worth a freaking try. I shouted before kicking the door to the side, and the void soldier along with it. "Reee!" the creature screeched after colliding with a few chairs and a big table. I wasted no time in rolling to my feet, stance wide and pencil in hand. My name was John, after all. But when the creature stood up from the pile of furniture, I saw that it was still in the form of the pizza delivery guy. Activating my second sight spell, I focused on his form. Pulsating, red tendrils were barely contained within his form, and his eyes shone with a sickeningly yellow light. Oh, come on! I shouted as I threw the pencil aside. I couldn't stab this guy. His name was Stefan, and he had a friggin' family. Stefan, it's me, John. Remember the $20 tip I gave you last Tuesday? The possessed man answered by dropping on all fours and scrambling at me like something out of a 90s horror movie. "Oh no, you don't." I leapt up and Mario stomped the poor delivery guy's head into the ground. I didn't land so gracefully when I bounced off, so it took me a second to get my balance. "Just stand still and I turned around to see the possessed delivery guy now standing up. Not a single scratch on him for me. A solidly built guy, a head taller than most. Stomping on his head that should have seriously injured him at least, but being possessed must have given him unnatural durability. My true self can withstand the depths of your ocean, the harshness of space. Even with my attributes limited by this vessel, IT's death won't come easily while I inhabit him. I placed all my focus on trying to summon a fireball, but all I could manage was a stream of purple sparks. Then he threw a chair at me. I quickly regained consciousness as the possessed man leapt on top of me. I tried with all my might to call upon that inhuman energy deep inside of me, but it was merely a faint hum, and grew no louder. I opened my mouth to shout obscenities at the low-ranking void soldier straddling me, but his hands were quicker, wrapping around my throat. A slow death by my hands, the damn thing hissed, pleased with this turn of events and his imminent victory. It could have crushed my throat easily, but it clearly wanted to savor every moment of my death. Thankfully, even now I felt no fear, which allowed me to scan the floor nearby for anything useful. A quick look was all it took to see there was nothing to be found, and my anger surged. I focused my energy into my fist and arm, and let loose a punch that would have rocked the pro boxer, and the man's head snapped back, but still his grip never loosened. That was it. As furious as I was, the rest of my punches lacked even a fraction of the power I'd managed in that one punch, as each blow I landed hit more softly than the previous. My vision began to darken around the edges, and memories of Sandy's smile, and the first time we'd met, flashed in my mind. Tears flooded my vision as sadness overtook the fury in me, and my eyes watered. It wasn't until I tried once more to reach out to Colcifer, only to be ignored once again, perhaps for the final time, that my tears of despair turned into tears of rage. I summoned all the strength I could, prying the hands of the possessed delivery guy off of my throat, and gasped for air, but that was all I could manage before being pinned down by my throat once more. My vision cleared enough for me to see the room, and for whatever reason, I wanted to know the time. I figured I should at least get to know the time of my death. I spotted the clock on the wall, but it was analog, so it took me a second to read the time. When it clicked in my mind that the time was 3:40 p.m., a sound strummed across my mind like a chord on a cello. The Nexus. I felt the hum within me respond to my realization, reaching out to that space between dimensions, my own mansion in the void. I formed the command in my mind, hoping the Nexus would fill in the blanks. Nexus. Emergency. Containment. Now, and to the surprise of the void spawn and myself, swathes of void stuff began to envelope us both. What? No. The abomination raged. I saw a lone figure in the busted doorway, smile on her lips as she spoke to me. With her mind I knew you'd think of something. She mouthed the last two words, Johnny boy, and space itself warped itself around us, causing all to go dark. With quite a sore throat, I awoke within a sea of tiny hands crawling all over my body, all comprised of void stuff, and although I was thoroughly unsettled by this, I realized that a comforting warmth was emanating from these hands. I sat for a minute and watched them go to work at scrapes and bruises, as a soft glow came from each hand, making the bruises and scrapes shrink to almost nothing. I still felt like I'd been hit by a dang truck, but the feeling was closer to the day after a couple of intense hours at the gym. As the hands faded back into the Nexus, I sat up barely a stone's throw from the edge of a large, silver warding glyph, encircled by a border wall of barely visible energy. Next to me, I saw the unconscious form of the pizza guy, his chest slowly rising and falling. I looked again to the circle of warding and saw it empty, except for a few large Nexus hands, balled into fists. The hands shook from time to time, then settled, and began again. Nexus. Firstly, thank you. The Nexus hummed a short, agreeable note. Secondly, deactivate invisibility within the warding circle. I immediately saw what had been possessing poor Stefan, red appendages like so many roots. No, like writhing blood vessels, pulsated and struggled sporadically against its bonds. Yellow orbs for eyes, staring straight into my soul. Enable invisibility within the containment ward. Oh, Colcifer has some serious explaining to do. I fumed for a while, contemplating exactly how I was going to get back at her for this. I just knew she had been watching that whole spectacle from the start. Nexus. Open covert viewing window into my previous location on Earth. The Nexus swirled in front of me, and I could see Colcifer rearranging the break room at blinding speeds, and fixing everything as if the attack hadn't even happened. I waited for a moment when she wasn't looking, and commanded the Nexus to snatch the pizza and cola before she could see it happening. Then, I grabbed the bull by the horns. Nexus. Activate capture and containment wards. Initiate containment protocol. Level, Colcifer. Target for capture and containment, Colcifer. She's certainly not going to be happy about this.